If there's anybody that needs a seat and you don't see one, if you see an open one, sit down. You may not know them now, but you will when you leave. We're all here for the same thing.
I was supposed to go to a dinner tonight, it got canceled. Oh, I'm good. Yeah, they called me about an hour ago and said, let's let it happen.
All right, we're getting ready to start. Oh, boy. Uh-oh, the camera went kapooey. Oh. Well. If anybody needs a seat, look around. You see an empty one, sit down. Enjoy yourself. And if you got a seat, and do you have a seat? Oh, do you have a, you all right? Okay. Mr. Bell got out of bed, I see. That's nice. Can you stay up till 9 or 9:30 tonight?
You ready, Bill? 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're on.
Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2017 show presented by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and the IndyCar, the Verizon IndyCar Series. Founded in 1993 to spearhead Honda's entry into IndyCar racing, Honda Performance Development has overseen successful racing efforts at all levels of the sport, from karting and quarter midgets to IndyCar and prototype sports cars. HPD offers race engines and competition products for professional, amateur, and entry-level racers. For more information on HPD and their company's racing product lines, please visit hpd.honda.com. That's hpd.honda.com. Quick note, there's a gentleman that has 2 seats in E stand. The face value is $125. If you're interested, he's sitting over here at this table, and he'll be more at the booth with Kathy. Stop by and see him, get his number, or make arrangements. You have him. And my friend, Mr. Roger Ward, sitting back here with all his fans and fannies, both of them, has 4 tickets in turn 3 if you're interested. See him as well. And I want to welcome a first-time visitor. She is the chief observer for the IndyCar Series. Joanne Jensen is here. And I hope you notice that Glenn Timmis is sitting right next to her. Is that because he wants to keep a job? Probably. I don't know. My first guest is a gentleman who was kind enough to take time out of his schedule to stop by. He's the team director for Chip Ganassi Racing and oversees everything they do, and obviously he does quite well. He's been here several times and always interested in talking to him. Please welcome Mr. Mike Hull. What is it about you and Scott, they call the Iceman, that come through constantly? Obviously, you got to give him a good car. Obviously, he has to know how to drive it. And he gets out of the car, and it's like, it's kind of what we expected. It's on. Should be.
It's on? Okay. Scott Dixon is a driver that just gets the most out of his car every day. And some days his car is better than other days, so we do better some days than we should, and we do not as well as we'd like. But Saturday for the pole there, those were 4 big laps, we didn't warm up in the morning. We just did the 4 laps. It kind of reminded me growing up going to a sprint car race in a way, because he just got in the thing and didn't lift. Years ago at Indianapolis, when we were doing the reruns one afternoon on Saturday to try to get the pole, I was talking to Dan Weldon, and I asked him to describe, because he was so good at Indianapolis. His drive style was absolutely frictionless. He never really turned the front wheels of the car. He didn't create any friction. And I said, Dan, what's it like to do 4 laps at Indianapolis when you're trying to qualify for the pole? And he said, well, you know, he said, I went to the Indiana State Fair last summer and with my family, and we decided to drive on that slick track. And I said, yeah? And he said, that's exactly what it's like in qualifying trim at Indianapolis. He said, the car feels exactly like that car does at the Indianapolis State Fair. And so that's what Scott was driving on Saturday, was a slick track car, but he got it done.
Was it a big deal when Ganassi Racing switched from Chevy to Honda? Obviously nothing that you had used prior would translate, I wouldn't think. So you had to start from zero.
It's the same chassis, but that's the end of it. What you have to do in order to be effective with a race car, and in this case an Indy car, is you have to be able to match the aero up to the mechanical side of the race car. And the aero side for a Honda is totally different than a Chevrolet. So not only did we have to we're still learning about the aero, but we also have to learn how to match the mechanical side of the car to the aero side. And we threw our setups out basically and started again. Okay.
Do you like the direction that the IndyCar series is going next year, with everybody having, so all the cars will essentially be the same? The difference will be Honda and Chevrolet.
I think it's going to be interesting. I've never been in favor of spec racing. I always thought that it's really important to create identification, and it's hard with spec racing to do that. But that seems to be the reality of not only IndyCar but many other series today globally. I think next year it's going to be an engine war. So the aero kit is going to be the aero kit, and if you look at the pictures of it and some of the conversations we've had with IndyCar, it's going to be a very basic race car. So I think you're going to need to have drivers like Scott Dixon in your car to create separation.
And guess what? You got him.
Yeah.
What is it? What does Chip Ganassi bring to the table? I mean, he wins everywhere he goes, and whether it's NASCAR, whether it's IndyCar, you know, and whatever he's done, he's always been a winner. Why?
Passion, and he's got it right out there on his sleeve. He's a one-sentence person, and if you ever have an opportunity in your lifetime to work for a one-sentence person, I think you should take that opportunity, because you know where he wants to be, not where you stand. His expectation, the way he lives his life, is the same expectation he wants from everybody on the team. And then the second thing is, he truly appreciates the fact that racing is a people business, and in order to meld all the people together, they have to respect each other and they have to get the most out of what's in the room. And I think he provides a great resource for us to be able to do that, and he supports the people aspect of what we do. You can't win races without being an unselfish group of people.
Do you have much to do with the NASCAR side?
Not really. Between here in Indianapolis, what I manage is the IndyCar process and also the sports car program. So between those two things, I probably go to as many races as somebody that would work on the NASCAR team does. Between racing and testing, I still go to every test, go to every race. I got my hands full. I go to about a half a dozen NASCAR races a year, but I'm there. I'm just a little dangerous by being there, probably.
Well, I just read today an article out of Dirt Track magazine or somewhere where they listed 5 guys that will eventually end up in Indianapolis, and one of them is Kyle Larson, and he would be the perfect guy for this place, I think, without question.
He did a great job for us at Daytona in the 24-hour race when he was paired up with his teammate Jamie McMurray, as well as Dixon and Kanaan. And it took him about 30 minutes to figure it out. He adapts himself quickly. I think because of the way that he learned to race. People just think he did ovals. Well, he did karting on road tracks too, and he's done some road track racing. And he's a quick study, and he'd be surrounded by great teammates.
Without question, and there's no doubt that he's a quick study. When he was running USAC, he was the guy. When he showed up, he was the guy to beat. Obviously, our Chip would have said, yeah. Nice talking to you. Yeah. and a pleasant kid. How do you keep the drivers you have together and they all seem to get along well. And of course, a couple of them were part of the Dan Weldon expose in Japan when they mailed his shoes back home for him and all that kind of nonsense. Is it that loose now as it was back then?
It is. In fact, with what happened to Dario and Dixon the other night, I'm not supposed to talk about it.
Okay.
They thought that Kanaan was in the car behind them. They thought it was a setup. And when they figured out it wasn't, they realized how serious it really was. They still have a lot of fun with each other. But the reality of IndyCar racing today is because the cars are so closely matched, you have to rely on your teammates and the information from your teammates while the cars are running on the racetrack, as well as between sessions, in order to read the racetrack and get the most out of the next session. You have to have drivers that are willing to share, knowing full well that they could be beaten by their teammates.
Do you guys have team orders?
No. Yes. Well, no, that's not fair to say. Yes, we do. Our team orders are very, very simple. If you take your teammate out, you'd better be in such a big way that you ride the airback helicopter out of the place.
That pretty well covers it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you don't, do you get nervous sitting up and you're doing the strategy for number 9 and there's a 9 and a 10 battle going on? Do you get nervous about it? You figure these guys are smart enough to know that.
Well, I think in that case there's give and take. No, it doesn't bother me.
It seems that the last few years, the 500, but IndyCar racing in general has become a strategy program that you have to, manage your fuel and do what it takes to continue and try and get one less stop than anybody else. And of course, your guys are very quick when they come in. The cars are in and out in 7.5, 8 seconds at worst. Am I missing this, or is that really a strategy that plays a huge part in this series?
Well, I think racing has found the pit lane. In the day and age when you had big tires that had a lot of grip and you had a lot of downforce and you had 1,000 horsepower, the cars first of all weren't as reliable, and the better drivers had an easier time of separating themselves from everyone else, and they didn't really rely at all on the pit lane to help them. But as time has gone on, the pit lane has become the racetrack in a way to where the 6 people over the wall work well together. Fuel mileage is important. Only it doesn't. People think that when you go into fuel conservation mode that you slow down. The reality is, if people really saw the fuel mileage that Scott Dixon was getting and the speed he was traveling, they would think he was running in a full rich position. So the whole idea in saving fuel is when you have a yellow flag, you put less fuel in your car. That's really why you do that. Because that gets you out of the pit lane faster. And fuel usually takes a bit longer than tires, so a slight amount. So that's really why you do that. And if you can stretch an extra lap for track position, that also helps you. At a track like Indianapolis, 2.5 miles around, it would be very, very difficult to really make that happen.
Well, when you figure these cars are going 300 feet every second, any time that you lose for whatever reason in the pit can be huge. I mean, you could lose second half 2 seconds. It could take you 50 laps to gain it back.
Yeah. You just don't want to miss the yellow.
Are you confident that Honda can propel you to the win? I mean, they're fast, obviously. I think 16 of the top 20 cars were Honda, so obviously they're going quick.
Yeah, I got hammered on Twitter today about that from some people. Trying to rubbish Honda. Race teams don't worry about those things. They don't worry about the vendors. They only worry about what they can control. And so your team works really, really hard together to make sure they can control what's in their hands. And you don't fall into a shell of being a conservative racing team based on what's happened to another racing team. So our guys are putting race motors in now. They're in the cars. And we're going to go racing on Sunday.
Well, I thought there's a lot of people here that are hoping you do, certainly. They're planning on going to the race.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting, the difference in drivers. I got to think, and I don't know this, but you set the car up for Scott, and he's fast. And somebody else get in the car, Tony, or somebody else get in the car, and I think, geez Louise, how do you drive this thing? How do you account the difference? And was it driving styles? You know, the guys can't get in one other's car and go, zip, this is great.
On an oval, some drivers love the right rear tire. They love the sensation of where that tire is all the time, and some drivers like the sensation of leaning on the front of the car. They rely on the front, so that's normally the difference in the setup. Just that. Firestone has a new right rear tire here. It took us a couple of days to understand that tire, but I think most everybody's into that now, and it's just simply drive style, and you can't take the setup from one driver and put it on another driver if they drive the entry of the corner differently.
How long did it take you to figure out what Scott needs? Because obviously you two guys mesh perfectly.
Well, we've got great people that surround him, and Chris Simmons has worked with him as an engineer. He was Dario's engineer before, and they got a great rapport. You know, my job is, I came from an era where somebody like me did everything. You know, you looked after the car, you worked with the driver, you did the setup, you did all that. I think Chris and I together are really good with Scott because both of us drove race cars, and we understand what the driver wants. And we have an intercom, as most everybody probably knows, so when Scott's on the racetrack, we're going back and forth all the time about what's next, what should we be doing, what's the most important thing. And my job as a manager is to keep the engineer in line so that the priority list is always shuffled toward the top of what's the most important thing as we chase the racetrack. And the engineer's job is to understand the resource that he has available to him for the changes that he can make on the race car. So I think it's a great combination, and we've got these guys that they call themselves, I don't know why, I don't know how it started, they call themselves the Wolf Pack, that work on Scott's car, and they do a heck of a job together.
You know, it's interesting, as I've said many times, I've been on teams where they had a driver that if 33 cars started, 32 fell out, he wouldn't win anyway. But the thing about your guys is all of your drivers are capable of winning at any time, any day, anywhere. And that's got to make their job much more interesting, much more fun.
Yeah. Well, you know, Chuck Buckman's sitting over here. And we worked on this guy's car in 1980, what year was that, 89 or 90? A guy named Bernard Jourdain. We worked on that car for a while together. And when we went back to Pocono, whenever we started going back there, 2 years, maybe 3, I don't know when it was, somebody said to me, where did you guys finish the last time you worked on an IndyCar at Pocono? And I had to think, I had no idea. So I looked it up, and we finished 8th in the Pocono 500 with Jourdain. But we were 9 laps down. And in those days, that's the way it was. You had 2 or 3 people that would just take off and leave everyone. And in NASCAR, it's great to have a top 10 finish. You know, that's what they talk about. But in IndyCar, it would be the same. You got good prize money, and you hung in there all day long, and nobody thought differently about it. Today, if you finish 9th, 8th or 9th, 9 laps down, man, there would have been a major catastrophe for that to happen.
Well, I've mentioned this a number of times. When I first came here in the early 60s, 62, 3, whatever it was, the winner of the race could be 2 laps ahead, and that wasn't unusual. And people couldn't wait to get tickets to the next year. Now, if they win by a second, they say, well, it wasn't that close.
Well, I don't know. You know, today we have 250 television channels. You know, we've got iPhones like that iPhone sitting there to where you can live stream any event globally right now. You can just pick up your phone and you can get it. Life is 140 characters today. It's a different way of living today, and I'm really lucky because I'm around a lot of people, a lot of millennials that work for us now, and people that can type faster with their thumbs than I can with all my fingers, and it's very, very different today. But the racing is still racing. We still race hard, and that hasn't changed.
Do you think this year, 2017, is the toughest series going? I mean, that the competition is as good or better than it's ever been?
Well, I think perception becomes reality. I don't think we should talk ourselves into that, but I think the racing is really, really good. If you got out if you got out the grid for the Indy 500 in 1995, see that year before the split, 95, okay, and you looked at the 33 cars that were on the grid, and you looked at the owners and the sponsors that were on the grid, you would probably say there might have only be 8 or 9 people that could win the race. I'd be willing to bet that you could pull out the grid today, and you're probably going to say probably 14 or 15 that can win the race. It is more competitive. It is more difficult to get it done. And, Kanan always says, this place chooses who wins. And you could have the best car, the best crew, the best driver, the best everything, the best sponsor, the best owner, the biggest Twitter following. And it's still going to decide if you win.
Do you think there's enough, engineers went to school to learn how to design and all that kind of thing, and there's very little area that on a car that an engineer can work on. I mean, you can't develop much, can you?
Well, yeah, you can. The thing is people don't really see what we work on. Because the cars are universal to each other. They look the same. So we spend a lot of time away from the racetrack in the artificial world, understanding how to make the car go faster. That's wind tunnel work, shake rig testing, simulation, matching shock absorbers, we call them dampers these days, shock absorbers up to what goes on the racetrack, because those are free in IndyCar racing, trying to make the car as frictionless as possible with all the components on the car, even though they're spec. Making sure the body fits right at Indianapolis is really, really important. So there's a massive menu list of all the things that you work on today that are slightly different maybe than we worked on 10 or 15 years ago. I would love to go back in time when we ran Zanardi and Vassar on the same team and do the things then that we do today on those cars. They wouldn't be able to find us. We'd be so far ahead.
Yeah, but unfortunately, the cars, as Sebastian Bourdais found out, safer barrier, the car's safety, the belt's held, I guess. He's got some injuries, but he'll be back.
Yeah.
It's a different world. When they had the aluminum frames, you hit the wall, then you had trouble.
Well, I mean, the car is meant to do what it did for him. It's meant to take absorb the energy. When you hit it almost head on to the wall at 100 Gs, that's a big hit. There's a lot of people that didn't make it from those hits at Indianapolis. So I think that the safer barrier has a lot to do with it. What Tony George did, he doesn't get credit for it. He should. Somebody else in the racing world seems to want to take credit for that. But the reality is he financed all that stuff at the University of Nebraska. They put up all the sled testing. They did all that. Phil Casey ran that deal. And those guys came up with the first version of walls that could save drivers' lives. And they continue to work on it. And it doesn't mean that we should test it. But when somebody does, it's nice to know that they have a chance.
Well, starting from the pole, your driver had the fastest laps that have been running 21 years. So obviously you guys have figured something out. I want to thank you for your time coming here tonight. I appreciate it. Any time that you would take the time to come here and we need to start early, I'll be happy to do it. And obviously, people read what I said and they're here.
It's really nice. It's nice that we have IndyCar fans. I can say that. That's a big deal. We need to move this thing from a village into a nation here somehow. But the reality is it's really, really great to be doing what we're doing.
We wish you nothing but the best on Sunday. Good luck to Ganassi Racing and all your drivers, and of course your car number 9.
Thank you very much.
Mike Hull, Managing Director of Ganassi. Our next guest is on his way up. I don't know where the other one is. He's here somewhere. Oh, yeah, Fred. We have two guests on their way up. I want to remind you that Sam Pierce Chevrolet is in Daleville, Indiana. You got to come to the country to see why the best prices, in fact, are in the country at Sam Pierce Chevrolet. You'll also see why Sam is always at or near the top of customer satisfaction. Take I-69 north to exit 34 and exit east 1 mile, and you won't miss it. You want to find out what these guys love about IndyCar racing? Why don't you take a ride in the Indy Racing Experience 2-seater? It's the best and most exciting race car ride in the world. Give a call, make a reservation. Number 317-243-7171. Go to extension 106 or go online at indyracingexperience.com. And hey, Fred, and in the promo box put SJ1, you get a 50% discount. If you need embroidery of any kind, do yourself a favor. Go to see Fran at I forgot the name of the company. Stitches 2. She's on Gasoline Alley. Give her a call. She loves to talk. Tell her what you need. She'll take care of it. Number 317-271-3444. And if you need insurance for your home, your commercial business, your car, do what I did. Call Mike Pardee at VP Insurance. Get a quote. You might be surprised like I was. Number is 317-248-0070. He's located at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. That's Mike Pardee at VP Insurance, 317-248-0070. And upcoming in just a couple of weeks will be the SVRA event. They'll be here 2 weekends in a row. Don't miss it. It is a great, great event. And if you have a kid that's 9 years old and you want to give them a ride in an IndyCar, you can do that. And go out there. You can look on Indy Racing Experience, find out when they're there. They're there every day. Usually there isn't something or weather interfering. You can make a reservation by going 317-243-7171 to extension 101. Mention my name on that one and you'll get the picture when the ride is over, free. Do you like the old Indy cars and stock cars and so forth? Do yourself a favor. Go to svra.com and subscribe to Vintage Racing Quarterly. It's a great magazine, and if you were into the Trans Am, they got it there too, so do yourself a favor, sign it up. Well, Roger's signing autographs. We're going to go without him. Move a little closer so we get both of you in the picture. Joining me is a gentleman who is, it's the 20th year since his win. He's a team owner. He was a very successful businessman, and he's done land development down in Florida. But it happened, he owned a race team, and he hired a kid by the name of Ari Lionbike, and lo and behold, they won the 500. He's come all the way from Florida, certainly not to be here, but he's here, and we want to talk to him. Please welcome Mr. Fred Treadway. And sitting next to Fred is somebody everybody knows. He's the son of two-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. Spent a lot of time in the racing world, various jobs here, there, and everywhere, including wiping his dad's face off after one of his wins. He went into the computer parts business, did very well. Now he and his lovely bride, June, who's over here, are lollygagging around Manhattan Beach out in California, and they walk down the hill and go to the Pacific Ocean. Or Roger, when June gives him permission, he goes out fishing. Poor guy can't afford food. He's got to go out fish for his lunch. Please welcome the one, the only, Mr. Roger Ward Jr.
And I want to say where we go fishing, we call it catching instead of fishing.
I was wrong again. Fred, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Thanks for having
Really?
me. Oh, absolutely.
I haven't heard that, but Dina said you were wonderful, so I guess that's good enough.
That's good.
The world treating you well?
Life is really, really good, yes. It's always good to be back in Indy.
Do you play golf a lot in Florida, or haven't you got time?
No, I ride motorcycles.
Well,
I travel around the country a lot and ride motorcycles. I don't really play much golf.
I see.
Yeah.
Ride motorcycles. Are you still building, developing land?
No, actually, I wear a deplorable hat because the government got too much for me, so I retired. I thought the Indy League had rules, but man, the government has more.
And they want more.
And I had that fake news, remember?
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't that Miller guy popular back in
Uh-huh.
'96?
Oh, that's a new way to use the term fake news. Hey, I want to ask you guys all a question because I know a lot of you were around when Fred Tread brought that race car to the Speedway. We needed cars. He was a stand-up car owner, and I would like everybody in this room to express their appreciation to Fred Treadway for that day.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Were you hooked on racing all the time, or you just get a bug? Let's go do this.
No, actually, I owned a sports bar in Broad Ripple.
You did.
Yeah. And in '94, there was a guy named Andreas Lieberle with Project Indy. I lent him $150,000 to buy a tub from Barry Green. So I went to a few races, and I could tell at Indy that I got a little bit excited, and we weren't running as fast as everybody else. And I said, well, why can't we run faster? And he said, well, we can't have those parts. And he said, they got a rear wing, and they got this. I said, I got money, I'll go buy one. So I went to the Reynard guy, and they weren't having none of that. So then when Tony George decided to start his league, I listened to him. I went with Andreas to a board meeting for CART in Michigan, and I told my buddies, I said, there's no way these two guys are going to get together because they both have good business plans. One's international and one's domestic. So I told my buddies, I'm going to go start an IndyCar team and win Indy. And they said, well, you don't even go to the race. What do you know? I said, I'll just hire good people and do it.
And you did.
And I did it.
You know, what's it like to be the owner of a winning car? I mean, you're sitting in the stands or somewhere, I'm sitting on a pit box, and this car goes out, and all of a sudden your guy wins. What was it like?
Well, it was really, it was a lot of work. But I was so blessed that I got to Ari Leindyke to come with me, and he said, I'll come drive for you if you hire Tim Wardrop, which was a great engineer. And then Tim said, I'll come if you hire Skip Fall. So I just hired a bunch of people and stayed out of their way. The first race was in Orlando. We were leading it, and the a gear went out in the gearbox. And so they told me that Andreas was our team manager at the time, put in a used gear. And I told him, I said, I'll fund the team, but it's got to be a Penske team. I don't want nothing but, we got to go out there to win. So anyway, the guy that was working on the gearbox was Antonio was his name, and they said he was an engine guy. He wasn't even a gearbox guy, so they told me a guy named Steve Eppert worked for Hall Racing, and that was over in a cart. I said, okay. So I got on a plane, and I flew to Homestead. I went to Hall Racing's pit area, and I said, is there Steve Eppert here? And this guy comes up. I told him who I was, told him what I'd pay him. He said, I'll be there Monday morning. The next race was Phoenix, and we won it. The next time we got to the track, we set all the track records in '96. And we were leading, and Salazar took us out halfway through.
Yes. And that record that Ari has, 238 plus something, will probably not likely to be beaten. I mean, they ran 232 now, and everyone, geez, that's the fastest in 21 years. Right. And it's still 6 miles an hour, and they're looking for hundredths of a second, so that's a ways off.
Yeah, I don't think anybody will ever beat it. And the practice lap was 239.8, so that's fast.
Yeah. Roger.
I had him at 240. Well, I did. It was those mechanical watches, you know how it goes.
What's it like, even today, to be the son and recognized son of a two-time winner? And your dad could have won it 3 and possibly 4 times. As he said one night when he was here with Jim Rathman, Jim knew I was faster. He should have been a gentleman and let me catch him and pass him.
Well, that's a true story, but Rathman was being greedy at the time. Well, the beat goes on. Here I am, surrounded by race fans, all of whom I consider acquaintances and friends. I'm on the dais with Fred Treadway. I just got through having a handshake moment with Mike Hull. I mean, how is my life? My life is blessed. We live at the beach. I catch good fish. I play crappy golf. But life is really grand. I tell you the truth, Don, I don't feel like I ever really worked a day in my life. I've been having so much fun.
And I used to go out to your office, and you didn't. You had your feet up on the desk and a phone.
And when Fred Treadway said it was a lot of work, what he meant was it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun accomplishing all that stuff. Amen?
Well, it is, but the teams, they really do work really, really hard. I mean, it's unbelievable the hours they put in and the
I see the calluses on your hands there.
No, I didn't work hard. They worked hard.
I got you. How you talking?
I stayed out of their ways.
Any calluses or scratches on Fred's hand, he might have tripped and fell or something. It wasn't from working on the cars. Okay. You were in Victory Circle with your dad when he won, and I remember you tell the story about, I think it was 64 when he won, and he got the kiss from the queen, and she started jiggling around. He said, boy, aren't I something?
Actually, the actress was Jill St. John,
Okay.
and it was the 59 race.
Well, I was close.
Well, there you have it. And here's the kiss for the driver, and he softened his lips up and moved in on her, and she started sort of moving around and all that stuff, and my dad thought he really was making a point with her, and she was up against the tailpipe, so it was just.
Now, you and your brother Dave were in Victory Circle, were you not, both times for both wins?
No, we didn't. My first race here, David and my first race here was 61. So we were here for the 62 win. And been here pretty much every year since. Missed one when I was in the military in Turkey, and one when we were here up through Carburetor Day and decided we'd go home. Gads, is that ever a mistake? Don't ever do that. Don't ever stay till Carburetor Day and then get in an airplane and think you're going to enjoy it on TV. That's all bullshit.
That from the pastor, I want you to know. Straight, skinny. How come coming with the bloodline you have, why didn't you drive?
I was not focused as a teenager. I was not. I wanted to chase girls and drink whiskey, and the guys that I knew that were dead serious race drivers, my contemporaries at the time, Billy and Gary Bettenhausen and I had a guy who wanted to buy a stock car team for me and Gary, and I just didn't have the energy to push forward with it. I mean, because I was going to school and I wasn't focused. But the guys that my contemporaries, they were racing quarter midgets, they were racing go-karts, they were working on cars, they were working, the apprentice program or the they were guys that were just hanging around race shops just working for free more or less so they could finally get a ride. I just didn't have that kind of incentive. I had the opportunities, but, I just didn't pay attention.
Well, I haven't paid attention and I'm still here. So what does that tell you?
By the way, how long ago did we start this radio program?
About 26 years ago.
26 years ago. Don K. How about it, man, for Don K., huh?
Why aren't I down in Florida riding around on a motorcycle with you?
Come on down.
Oh, boy.
With this October, or this August, we're going to ride around the country, all four corners of the country, if you want to come with us, about 12,000 miles.
Listen, I have laundry I have to do and things like that. I'd probably be too busy. Is Rick going with you?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. What does he do with his business? Just shut it down?
I guess he has people running it.
Oh, I see. Okay. I'm talking about his son, Rick, who actually was a driver and drove it to 500. How many times a year? Twice? 3 times?
Twice.
Twice, yeah, okay. And he came awful close to winning a race in Texas, if I remember. I did quite well. Yeah. So.
Speaking of ex-drivers, I guess I just got into town, but one of my old drivers named Sam Smith, and he hit the wall and got paralyzed driving for us. But I heard he won the last race.
Well, there's a little discussion about that. He and Mario, and they were supposed to drive. Mario was supposed to drive the same way Sam does, with the blow into the air for the brakes or whatever, and use his head and his camera they had that steers the car where it's supposed to go. But supposedly he cheated somehow. Now, how Mario could cheat in a car like that? How would?
Well, I heard Sam was driving for A.J. Foyt.
Well,
I still haven't got my trophy back from Texas from Foyt yet.
Well, really? Do you keep mentioning it to him? Do you ever discuss it with him?
No.
Oh. Go down to the vault while you're here and discuss it over a bottle of wine. You might get somewhere. You never know. Do you miss racing? Do you follow it when you're down there? I mean, if you're riding on a motorcycle, you can't be looking at a screen and driving at the same time. But do you follow the series?
No. I mean, I follow. If something's on, I'll watch it, but I don't make it a habit where I have to go watch every race. So I watch probably half the races.
It was more fun owning a car than sitting on a couch with a Mai Tai watching it?
You know, I don't know. I'm just more of a competitive type person. So if I'm not in the thing racing, it doesn't have near as much emphasis as, watching it on TV is not quite as like being there and being involved with a team and all that stuff. So.
Hey, Fred, do you think we should race back at Fontana?
Sure.
All right. I want to report. I asked Mike Hall that very question. I walked up to him and I says, Mike, will we ever go back to Fontana? Did anybody watch that race? Yeah. Best car race we've had in a long, long time, right? So anyway, I asked him and he said, we want to go. So let's ride our guys.
Yeah, but you got to get your guys out in California to show up. That's, I think, part of the problem.
Hey, we had enough people there. We had enough people. They didn't complain about the crowd. They complained. It was the drivers that didn't like that kind of racing.
Well, they've said that before, but they do it. That's what they get paid to do. Do you hear anything about living out there? And of course, I know there's a place called the Fish Bar where they know who Roger Ward is, but do you hear any talk, anybody pull you aside and say, hey, you're Roger Ward, how come you're not out here? How come you're not racing? Anybody discuss coming to Fontana?
I get people all the time think I'm my dad. I mean, still. And he's passed away more than 10 years ago. I had a guy at the Speedway the other day ask for my picture until he found out that I was junior, and then he wasn't very interested. But nonetheless, I don't really have any. When I go to the race, like at Phoenix, we go up and buy a ticket and go up in the stands and watch. We loved every minute of it. Here at the Speedway, it's a privilege to come in the press room, visit with you, look around for a while, go in the garage, see a few old friends, go to the old timers and that sort of thing. But pretty much we want to watch it. We want to see this thing happen. And, of course, we're all very knowledgeable about what's going on. I picked Rossi last year, 8 days before the race. I picked him. It's the truth.
He's a pastor. Would he woof anybody? No. It's interesting. I get a lot of times say, you've been doing this for a long time. Isn't it time to quit? I love it. I love seeing people like Fred and talk to Roger and the drivers that I know and a couple of them that are be up here a little bit. I think it's a great sport. I think it's one of the premier team sports because every guy has to do his job in order for the driver to succeed. And of course, it also helps if you have an Ari Lyondike when they know full well he can succeed. So we better give him the car, or Fred will fire us.
I think there's no doubt about it. There's other series that seem to outdraw us, that seem to make a little bit more money than us, and so forth and so forth. But you can, I think we've got the car racing. We've got the men with the gonads that it takes to do this side by side at the Speedway, the speeds they're running. Even yesterday out there testing and putting race setups on. These guys were running close to each other. They're experimenting with the draft and so forth. So I think we've got the car race. And Phoenix was really, even though there wasn't a lot of lead changes, Phoenix was a really exciting car race to be at. And I just hope we can increase our road courses, some street courses, but I'd like to see us get some more ovals back on the series.
Well, the last time I had Jay Fry here, I said, I like ovals. That's what American IndyCar racing is about. He said, don't forget, I'm an oval guy too, and he's added 2 since that time, and I have a feeling there'll be 1 or 2 more coming along. But your dad has been said by guys that competed against him, one of the best drivers ever. That he could win any time, any day, get him 4 wheels, whether it's a midget car or a sprint, it didn't matter, IndyCar. Look out, here comes Roger. In fact, he went to, I forget what track it was out east, where all the heavy money was with the sports cars, and he showed up with a midget and whipped them all.
That was Lime Rock, Connecticut. National Speed Sport News. Chris Economaki called a friend of his from in New Jersey who ran midgets and asked him to set a midget up for my dad to run at that Formula Libre race. We ran a few sports car races after that, and that racetrack was just perfect for a midget. So they'd have to push start him, and then he'd just drive it down in the corner, and all these Juan Pablo guys, and now they were all meow, meow, meow. My pop just goes down, threw it sideways, shot across the corner, blew them all off. And I still have that trophy hanging in my house. And my father appreciated this plaque that was sponsored by a Dr. Saborn, and the trophy he won was for the best performance by American-made car. They didn't give anything about winning the race or anything.
Well, your dad could win almost any time. He strapped in a car, and everybody said, this is the guy to beat, and he always was. What was it about him? Because I had him on here 3 times, and just the nicest guy, and he was always astounded in his later years when he'd be walking around and people would stop and want his autograph. Even younger people would come and get his autograph. He could never figure out why, but your dad was just that kind of guy.
Well, I think my father, outside of a few occasions when, things just always seem to happen, but I think he genuinely appreciated the value of having a team owner like Bob Wilkie, chief mechanic and car builder like A.J. Watson, the other mechanic. I mean, they had Larry Shinoda. I'm trying to think of some other names of guys that were there on that team, but Larry Shinoda's the guy that designed the Mustang, the first fastback Mustang. He's the guy that has McDonnell Douglas logos. I mean, he's just an incredibly talented engineer and artist that designed those race cars. And they really were conscious about aerodynamics and proper cooling and cockpit comfort. My dad felt blessed to have a guy in the right front who gave a damn and showed up and worked hard and trained hard. And I think it was just, it's fortunate. Like Leyendyke ain't going to win the Speedway if it aren't for Fred Tread. You know what I mean? Everybody works together to make it happen, and I think my father appreciated that a great deal.
No question, because he recognized that he wasn't the only one there. He drove it. They had to prepare it to his liking. Fred, when you came in as an owner, I tried to, what's your experience? What did you, and you just said, well, I like it, and I want to do it, and I can, and I am, and I will, and you did.
Well, really, I had zero experience, but in coming to the races with Project Indy, prior to me getting in, I could tell that racing is a great sport, and a lot of people love it, but it's also a huge business fest. Most of the successful team owners, if you look at them, they're really good businessmen too. They know how to organize, they know how to get the team going, and they make money as a result of racing, not off of racing, but a result of racing. It's not hard to get distributorships, all that. So I like the business part of it. I thought I was a pretty good businessman. I thought I could put a team together. And even though I didn't know about racing, if you hire good people, I started out as a carpenter, and then that led me into environmental, and I was the largest environmental contractor in the country. And then I lost my insurance. I started insurance companies on the New York Stock Exchange. So, there's a lot of things I've done that I didn't know anything about. So racing. So
then you opened a bar.
Yeah, and I didn't know anything about drinking either.
Now there's a rumor that you learned though.
But I also I loved. Once I got involved in it, I loved the ovals, and I liked what Tony George said and all the history of the United States about all the ovals we have here, and I understood why CART was running at all the other road races, and that's to get, when you go to pick a driver, they look at talent, but they also look at the money exchange, and in Brazil you could get 2 for 1. So if you're looking to get $10 million, you can go put a Brazilian driver in there, and they only have to bring $5 million instead of 10. So So it made a lot of sense why things were going that way and why I didn't understand the names of a lot of drivers. I used to with Voigt and all those guys, but still, once I understood the business part of it and I kind of understood what the business was, then I just went out and tried to hire good people. And then when you hire good people, let them do their job, kind of stand back. When they get into a little bit of a riff, you have to kind of bring them back a little bit. But we had a wonderful team, and
Did the business part of it work out for you? Did you bring sponsors and were able to network and help your business life from there?
Well, no, but
We drank at your bar.
it almost did. I'll tell you a perfect example, and this is probably boring to people that are race fans, but I ended up losing $27 million. But people go, "Oh my God, that's a lot of money." But what happened back then? The internet was getting started. And so I put this company on called Mall.com, which was a startup. And for every dollar I would give them on my car or I would spend, they'd give me shares in this new startup company. So I ended up with 17 million shares after 3 years. We almost went public at 35, but if we would get an anchor, everybody, our investment people said we'd go out at about 80. So they went and got the anchors. 3 days before we were going to go public, the stock market crashed. Had the stock market not crashed, you'd have had a happy IndyCar team owner. But that's what I mean. It is a business. I mean, when you're paying $75,000 for an engine and you're paying for the rebuilds, I mean, it's anybody that says it ain't a business, and if you can organize that business and get it running right, it's good.
Well, you did. You succeeded. You are a Indianapolis 500 champion. They can't ever take that away from you. And it was always very. You were always approachable. I mean, I'd walk up and ask you questions, and you said, "I don't know, but ask him." And you did run a good organization. You had some really good people, and Ruthie Forbes was one of them. Was with you, I think, from the start, if I'm not mistaken. She was with you for a number of years while you were there. You had some good people, and you were a winner. That was the important thing, and I appreciate you coming all the way from Florida to do this.
Well, one last, a funny thing, everybody says I was approachable because the media, and I don't want to sound too much like Trump, but I never had a good time with the media. But one time, the doctor, but anyway, one of the guys comes up, and we're about 3 or 4 laps, 5 laps, 10 laps into the first race, and he comes up and says, "This is Fred Treadway, team owner." He goes, "Fred, years ago you were over there. Now you're over here. Tell me the biggest difference being a team owner." I said, "I'm sober." He said, "Oh my God, we're gonna have fun with this guy."
And you're still sober tonight. That's it. Thanks for being here. Congratulations on your win. It's 20 years, and he's here. Fred Treadway. And, of course, my good friend, who was kind enough to stop by tonight. I would say you drove all the way up here just to be here, but I know that's not true either. Because you and Leo want.
We drove from California.
Well, I know that, but not to be here. You
Well,
came up to straighten Patrick out and keep Leo out of trouble.
I'm failing miserably.
Yeah, well.
Hey, I want to just bring up one thing before I get hung up here. I heard listening to a NASCAR race a couple of weeks ago, Talladega. Who doesn't want to watch that? I mean, after all, they fly through the air with the greatest of ease. But anyway, I heard those NASCAR guys talking about how they were developing that safer wall. I almost lost it, man, because Tony George, on the board of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, came up with that idea, paid for the research. I heard Mike Hall say it a little bit earlier, but I want to re-emphasize that again, how important it is. I think that Tony gets the credit for that. He deserves it. There's no doubt in my mind that Sebastian Bourdais is a memory. If it wasn't for that safer wall, does anybody agree with me? And Tony George, I think, by himself. I mean, of course, he brought people along, but it was his baby, his idea, and I think he deserves the full credit.
And that organization you're making mention of, their contribution was supply a few cars to run into it, make sure it worked. That was it, from what I understand.
Those guys are pretty good car testers, I'll say that.
and they're happy with the wall. I want to thank you for bringing your gang, and of course the very lovely bride of yours, June. Always a pleasure. Thanks for stopping by. Roger Ward.
Hey, everybody, say it. Pat Beckley's here. That's Jack Beckley's son, our friend Leo and Celeste. And Toddy Ruttman's here someplace, too. Say hello to
She's sitting
Toddy.
right over there. Troy Ruttman's daughter is right over here. Thank you, gentlemen. I have my next two guests on their way up. One of them's been here for a while. The other one just got away. Hey, Fred. Hey, Fred. He don't want to talk. Hey. Hey, Steve. Hold it down, Steve. Steve, hold it down. My next two guests are two gentlemen who participated in the Indy Lights, and they will be running the Freedom 100. Sitting next to me is a young man who was runner-up by just a couple of points last year in the Indy Lights points chase. He's back again this year, driving for Bilardi Racing. And at the Grand Prix of Indianapolis, he was runner-up to Kyle Kaiser. He is here all the way from Uruguay. His dad went home to work the farm so he could stay here and play. Please welcome, they call him Santiago Urrutia.
Thank you.
Sitting next to him is a gentleman who is making a career of racing now, among other things. He has done quite well, and you seem to be improving each and every race. And I'm honored that you're here tonight. Please welcome Mr. Shelby Blackstock.
Thank you for having me.
Now, in the off season, do you still he participates in the entertainment and builds stages? Do you still do that in the off season?
No, I haven't done that in probably 5 or 6 years now. Just kind of fully focusing on racing.
So what do you do in the off season?
Train and look for sponsors.
How you doing?
Pretty good. I mean, it's always an uphill battle. You're always trying to find out the best way to make it all work. But overall, it's going pretty good.
How about you? Your dad told me. I said, what?
People say that you make a lot of money in this show, so you should be our sponsor for the team.
Ask the people that I have to pay every month for this, and you'll find out that ain't true. Now, when I talked to you and your dad after the Grand Prix, I said, "Does Santiago go home to work?" Oh yeah, in the off season he come help on the farm. What do you do on the farm? As little as possible, probably.
I draw the tractors and those things. Right now, actually, my father is working.
And you're here playing?
Yeah. I'm here, so spending the money, and he's working out there. But he's going to come on Thursday for qualifying and then Friday for the race.
What got you into racing? Why? Did you just didn't want to be in the farm, or what hooked you on racing?
It comes from my grandfather, like the passion from the farm, using the tractors and those things. He was a big Formula One fan. And then my father get it, and then, when I was a child, I was like 3 years old, and my grandfather got these little motorcycles for like, how you say when, my grandfather bought for like my cousins, and for me. And I was 3, and I say, okay, when I drive it, and then I started racing with that little motorcycle when I was 3. And then my mother said it was too dangerous, and then I changed for go-karts when I was 5. And then
when you were 5, you started racing?
When I was 5, yeah. And then
jeez,
till today that I'm right now I'm 20, I never stopped racing.
Have you had any thoughts of being a driver in Formula One from Uruguay?
No, we never had a driver from Uruguay.
I know, but would you like to be the first one?
To be honest, right now, no, I don't care about Formula One.
Good.
I don't care about Formula One
Good.
anymore. No. I think for the example that you got right now with Fernando, like he's racing in Formula One, it seems like his best result is like 20, and he came here and he can do pretty well with a good car. That the thing shows that IndyCar, with a big team or a small team, whatever, you can be competitive, you can show your talent. So yeah, I'm a big fan of IndyCar right now, which is showing a great racing, very competitive every race. You see Ed Campeter, that is not a super big team, and he almost did pole position against Chip Ganassi, that is one of the biggest teams. So I think that IndyCar gives that a little chance to everyone. If you're not running on the biggest team, you still can be competitive.
What's your goal, Shelby? Are you interested in staying and working your way up to IndyCar? Obviously, is your career?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean, IndyCar's obviously put a great Maserati Indy program for us to get there. And I mean, Santi kind of covered everything. I mean, if in Formula One, if you're not with two teams, you have no chance of winning. So there's really pointless. I mean, we don't really do this to battle for 5th to 8th. So, yeah, IndyCar has really done a great thing. I mean, how Dale Coyne came out and won the first race of the season, was championship leaders up until he got taken out at Phoenix, really. So, I mean, that's a huge part of IndyCar, is anybody has a chance to win, no matter who it is.
What got you into racing? You're from a musical family, musical background. How did you get into racing?
Yeah, I'm different. I was very, very, very different. I did my year of college. Didn't really work out at all. So I did my first year. I went to a driving school in Bondurant Racing School out in Arizona, and did the 4-day course. They said, "Hey, you really have a knack for this. You need to go to Skip Barber." And went to Skip Barber, did a couple of races. Well, then Skip Barber offered kind of like a little loophole. It was mainly for all the gentleman drivers to kind of go out and really just when they say, "Hey, I have a free weekend," they'll come out and race. Well, some of the younger kids started doing it to where you can have unlimited racing and race any of the cars you want. So we were having up to 9-10 races a day, and that was the reason why I got up my racecraft and how I kind of got up to speed. So just kind of fell into it, had a passion for it. Everything came easy in the fact of someone would explain what I need to do with the car, and I could translate it right next to the next session. So it's what I was meant to do. And yeah, I mean, I've only been racing for 6.5 years, but I've been able to accomplish a lot, and here we go.
Do you think that either one of you guys, if you win the championship in lights, would you stay another year, or would you try to get a ride? Because you win $1 million, which will get you 2 or 3 races, and that's it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely not. You want to go up pretty. You always want to be in IndyCar. I mean, because this is obviously kind of like you're still developing and you're still going. If you win the championship, really the last thing you want to do is come back to another year. And really, what's Dan Anderson's way of saying it? You got to use it. You can't just keep it for credit for next seasons. You got to use that championship to move on. So yeah.
I think if you win the championship, like the Master Road to Indy with USF 2000, Pro Mazda, and Indy Lights, is decide that who is the champion in each series have to move forward. And I think it's working pretty good. I mean, if you see the last champion, for example, we had Aaron Tillett, our teammate, that he was the Pro Mazda champion last year, and he won the first race of the year this year, and I won the championship in 2015 in Pro Mazda, and last year I almost won the Indy Lights championship. And you see Ed Jones right now racing in IndyCar, and he's competitive. He finished in the top 10 the first 2 races, and he almost did it to the fastest 9th for the qualifying. So I think Master Road to Indy is doing a great job, and definitely if one of us won the championship this year, we're gonna go to IndyCar definitely next year.
You drive for Brian Bellardi. He's got a pretty slick team, it seems to me. He's got some really good people. John Bruner was here last week. He's got some good people that give you a good car. Do you feel confident in every event that they will give you a car that you can win with?
Yeah, we have great people. We have been struggling a little bit on the beginning of the year, we have to say, but right now as a team we put in everything together, like with the all 3 engineers and all 3 drivers, who's kind of like changing the way to work. And actually yesterday on the test it was pretty good. It was better on the Indy road course a little bit in race 2, and we seems like Andretti's very strong this year in Indy Lights. Out of 6 races, I think they won 4th. So it will be alright. It's still a long way, so we definitely going on a good way, getting things right. And I think this race Freedom is gonna be a good race for us.
Seems to me Mr. Bellardi is his couple of his cars have been involved in the closest races in the history of the Speedway. When you decided to go full-time racing, I mean, you're from a family that I assume has never raced. You're the first one. Did anybody at the dinner table say, "You got to be kidding"?
My dad. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the biggest part of it is, I mean, mom's always the most supportive of their sons and stuff like that. My dad's a businessman, so he understands the aspect of it to where all this has to come from somewhere, and sponsors are a big part of this sport. So to get a young person started in the sport, especially in the junior levels, it's mainly families that keep you going. So beginning, yeah, it was basically that, but now they're all supportive. Once they kind of figured out I had an itch for it and was pretty good at it, and it was kind of all for it.
Is the competition as exciting for you in the car as it is for somebody like me sitting in the stands and watching, or wherever I happen to be standing?
I hope so. I mean, each year, I mean, this is my third year at Indy Lights, and it's definitely progressed a lot. I mean, just take the Freedom 100, for example. The first year I ran the Freedom 100, everybody was the first year of the brand new car, and everybody was kind of figuring everything out. It was coming off of the 4-wide finish at the start, where everybody was thinking it was the best finishing in the history of the IMS Speedway. And then last year it got better. We had a 2-wide finish, and then during our test day yesterday, it was absolutely ridiculous. We were 2-wide pretty much the entire lap, 3-wide on the straight. I mean, it's gonna be a really wild Freedom 100 because everybody's finally got the time to kind of catch up with everything, and the level of drivers always kind of keeps on getting better and better. So it'll be a pretty crazy Friday.
It's not the size of field I like, but you can't say between 1 and 15 there is almost not anybody that can't win. No. Everyone's capable of winning. You drove the original car, the old car, didn't you? No. Oh, you never drove. You've been in the new car since you've been here. How have you tested an Indy car yet? How close is it, or how good is it when you get out of the Indy Lights car now, this car, and move into an Indy car? Are you prepared to move up readily?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're by far ready to move up. The biggest things that stand out are the downforce. They have a lot more downforce. I tested at Watkins Glen, and the car has a massive amount of downforce. It's a very good tire. Carbon ceramic brakes are amazing for obvious reasons. But yeah, I mean, everybody's really. It's so easy to get to like the 90% level. But the reason what makes Scott Dixon and all those guys so good is they can find that last 10%, and that's really just time in the car and really getting the confidence level up and working with your team and engineer. So that's really the only thing that they really struggle with coming as a new driver. But getting up to speed was pretty easy.
So you think that the Mazda Indy program with the USF 2000 Pro Mazda Indy Lights prepares you well to move into IndyCar?
Yeah, definitely yes. I think as I say, they're doing a great job. And pretty much last year, like a lot of drivers, including me, we tested the IndyCar, and it was pretty good. I got to test on Sonoma last year with Schmidt, and it was actually a pretty good test. And I only did like the 2015 Pro Master season, and then last year Indy Lights. And when I drove the IndyCar for the first time, I say, okay, this is not that it's hard, but not that hard that it seems to be. The biggest thing is the downforce and the brake, but as soon as you understand how everything's work, then you need that a little bit to be like super quick, and that is difficult to find that last second or half a second, but I think with a little bit of testing, we can show the speed, and you can see with the rookies in IndyCar, as I say, Spencer Pigot did pretty well last year, John is doing good this year, and all those guys come from the Master Road to Indy, so I think it's a great series to prepare to go for IndyCar.
You prefer racing rather than working on the farm?
Definitely yes. I hope I can be here for like a long time.
Can you play a guitar or sing or anything? Are you musical in any way other than in the shower?
I'm musically challenged. So absolutely not. I got so the biggest things that I got from my parents, probably I didn't get any music, didn't get anything of that nature, but got probably the work ethic from my mom and the business aspect from my dad. So happy I got those two things.
In this sport, that's what you need, without question. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming. I want to wish you both the best. And does Bilardi have any team orders that if you two guys are battling for the win at all, or they just go for it, just don't wreck the cars?
Don't tear up my equipment.
So when you're gonna come to my farm in Uruguay?
Well, I mean, as soon as I finish my two-seater ride, I'll be there.
All right, that's fine. Yeah, but you're gonna come to work, because I'm gonna be watching you. If I'm driving the tractor and you come there, and I came here. Let's do this, okay? I came here, I do the show, and then you go to Uruguay and you work on the farm. What do you think? Look, well, people say yes. There we go. There we go.
Something's gone wrong here. I've lost control. Well, I want to wish you guys nothing but the best. I thank you both for
Thank you
showing
very
up
much.
here. I've been chasing you, Shelby, for a while, so I'm glad you made it. Watch these guys. The Freedom 100 is going to be a good one, and there's two of them in there. Santi and Shelby Blackstock. Wish them well. Now, I think the golfer is here somewhere, and his protege should be with him someplace. I don't know where they are. I hope they're here. Tom, are you here? Kody, are you here? Come on up. The only trouble is Tom's got to put his golf clubs down. I trust most all of you watched the practice and qualifying, and I found it quite interesting. I thought, what the Frenchman or the Spaniard is doing is amazing. You come from Formula One and doing well, but it's not unprecedented. Nigel Mansell in his rookie year almost won the race. Nelson Piquet has been here. Graham Hill won the race. So there's what in the world is that? Oh, I thought it was a picture of you. I'm sorry. Sit down. Sit down. Sit down. Now move their chair over closer so we can get you in the picture. You two, come on over this way. Are they still in the picture?
This is the first time I've ever been here, you know.
I don't care about that. They're both okay. All right. The gentlemen joining me are involved, and one of them's involved, the other one drives, and is a three-time winner. The gentleman sitting next to me is a former co-owner of a Silver Crown car, been around racing for many, many years, and he is assisting Bob Sargent with the promotion of the Hoosier 100, which will be run this Thursday night out at the Indiana State Fairgrounds. And he is a three-time hole-in-one golfer. Please welcome Mr. Tom Johnson. And he shot 87 today. Sitting next to him is part of a family duo who, in addition to the other drivers in the race, they have to battle each other from the Swanson family. Please welcome Mr. Kody Swanson. You are a three-time winner, if I'm not mistaken, of the Hoosier 100. What does it take to win that thing?
Well, I guess if I still know, then maybe I'll be a four-time.
Are you going to participate this Thursday and try and make it four-time?
Yeah, yep, we're going to give it our best shot. If we're able to do it, we would tie Al Unser Sr. He's the only ones to do it.
How did you and your brother get started racing?
We got started, my dad was racing, and we grew up on the West Coast. He ran super modifieds when I was little, including at the Copper World. After lost a few friends of his racing, moved into late models and some modifieds and some stuff like that. And Tanner and I always had an interest in it, and I think we were maybe 10 and 12 and got a chance to kind of get started.
Who's your biggest competition in any event you enter?
I mean, everybody. There are a lot of good people and drivers and car owners in Silver Crown, and anybody can win, so you got to beat them all.
Well, I was thinking you're going to tell me my brother Tanner is my biggest competition.
If we're talking about Lucas Oil Raceway or many of the pavement races, he probably is. He certainly beats me plenty. I'd have to acknowledge him as that. Yeah.
What got you interested? You're in insurance, and, a golfer. How did you get?
If Fred Treadway is still here.
He's still here and he's awake.
Fred Treadway was one of my first customers in motorsports. In fact, in 1997, when we did the crash damage program, we only insured two cars, Ari Lyanduck and Scott Goodyear. And the underwriter was saying, man, you really know your racing. Fred would even tell you how lucky that was. To what was it, 30-some years since a team finished first and second?
What got you into racing? What got your interest in it? I mean, what you do is 180 out except for selling them. What got you interested in to be a car owner for a number of years?
My wife says it's a disease, and the older you get, the worse it becomes.
Do you still own a car?
We do not. 6R Racing ended in 2014 when Jack Hewitt decided to come back and do it one more time. I really wasn't in favor of that deal, but, you know, we lived through it. He lived through it, and I hope he's over it. Otherwise, we're back in business.
Is he still got his two-seater at all?
No, he doesn't have the two-seater. Chuck's sitting out here. Chuck Buckman and I tried our darndest the last couple years with Jack, and I never was able, as the spotter, I was never able to get him to finish. You know, and I don't know whether it's Chuck's fault or Jack's fault. Yeah.
Well, I blame Chuck. He's here.
Yeah. Well, whenever I'd tell him that somebody's getting ready to pass him, he said, "Tom, they're already past me." So he kind of made it so I really was reluctant to say a damn word to him. I never spotted for Kody. Kody did start out with 6R Racing in Silver Crown cars and did a great job for us. And yeah, I can't say enough for the Swanson family. Daddy Mike and Tanner, Tanner drove for us too. Great kids. Both of them were valedictorian in their high school class. And I'm thinking about that, and I'm going, were you guys homeschooled? And they declared that they were not homeschooled. They are really smart individuals.
What's your favorite track and what's your favorite surface? Obviously, you do well on dirt. Is that your favorite surface, or does it matter?
No, I mean I'm a pavement guy by trade. I started I guess on dirt in micro sprints in California, but came to Indianapolis to run the night before the 500 with Steve Lewis and his midgets, and so I was a pavement guy. And as USAC, the pavement sprint cars went away and the pavement midgets went away. It became pretty clear if I was going to continue to race and drive in circles, I was going to have to figure out how to do it on the dirt. And you know, like Tom mentioned, I got the opportunity with 6R Racing to start in the Silver Crown Series, I think in 2009. And that, you know, it's one of the, I think the last one left. It's just about half and half dirt and pavement. And in the last few years, you know, I used to struggle on the dirt and had to commit to getting better. Tried to run sprint cars where I could just to teach myself the habits I would need to be competitive on these dirt Silver Crown cars. And over time, I've gotten better at it. But the pavement is still something that I really enjoy and love running. But I never met a race car I didn't like. I mean, they're all a blast to drive. You couldn't ask for anything more.
There was a motorsports article, Dirt Racing Magazine or something, and it listed 5 drivers they thought would make it to IndyCar and with dirt experience, because you got to feel the slide, you know, all that. And I was surprised that neither you or your brother was listed. They had Chris Bell, Kyle Larson, Rico Abreu. I can't remember who the other one was, but and they're all good. But I was surprised that you weren't listed on that. Would you like to? Do you hope to move up to IndyCar? Or are you happy where you are?
Yeah, I mean, I would love the opportunity to move on, you know, and I don't know, for whatever reason, Tanner and I just seem to fly under the radar, and whatever reason that is. But you know, we keep working hard and keep trying to race well in the races we got the opportunity to, you know, with the Silver Crown Series, and we're both fortunate. We drive for completely different race teams, but that those car owners are willing to stick us in the seat and pay us to do it. And you know, neither of us are full-time racers, just because the position we're in, we couldn't do it that way. So we work hard and race hard when we get the opportunity. And yeah, I would absolutely love the opportunity to move on. But unfortunately, a lot of the conversations end the same way. You know, they ask what kind of funding or sponsorship I have. And, you know, when I tell them that I get paid to race and I work for a living aside from that, unfortunately, that's where it seems to end up.
What do you do? What's your full-time job?
I work for Alton Witzig Engineering. They do construction materials testing, headquartered here in Indianapolis, but have branch offices in Ohio. And I started there 4 years ago. My wife Jordan started there and got me on board with them, and we were just part-time and just trying to piece together whatever we could to make it work. And lucky for me, they're race fans, and so I work full-time, but it's kind of like flex hours where when I need to be off and racing like this week, I took the week off of work, and they're supportive. They're going to come out to the Hoosier 100, the head of our department, and cheer us on. So it's just a piece of the puzzle that keeps us going here.
You have a good friend in the crowd, don't you?
Can you imagine that Pat Kennedy just called me?
Yeah, well, he said that you two guys had two tin cans, but the string broke.
I can't believe it. I mean, he's sitting right over
Yeah,
here, and he
he's-
just calls me.
Yeah,
Well, are you kidding me?
How big a race is the Hoosier 100?
I mean, for Silver Crown, I mean, it might be the biggest one on our calendar each year. The history that goes back. I mean, I don't know how many runnings we're up to, but I think the first one was in '46, maybe.
Well, that's the first time they ran at the Indiana State Fairgrounds, but the first Hoosier 100 was
53.
1953,
Yep.
and I was 6, and I've never missed one. And I'm not sure how that happened because I'm not very mature. But you're right. The first one was a AAA race of some kind.
Yes, I mean,
in 46.
for me, the Hoosier 100 is huge. People talk about building new facilities and new racetracks, but something you just can't duplicate is history and tradition and knowing the people that were there, the names that did it and participated before you. So to be able to run in a race with that kind of history is an honor for me, and to have won it at all is incredible.
Kind of the big honor for him is to drive for Bob Hampshire, because we had an affiliation with Bob Hampshire too, with Jack Hewitt, and Bob Hampshire, he's a magic man, and long as Kody listens to Bob Hampshire, he's going to be real effective come Thursday night.
So what you're helping Bob Sargent with this race only, or are you involved in the other two?
Well, I'm doing the pace truck for tomorrow night at the Holman Classic, if in fact that rain god doesn't get us. And I'll be doing that again at the fairgrounds and also at Carb Night. So when Kody drove for us, I told him, I said, I could brake check the leader if you're in second place, and we get Tanner out of the way here, and let Kody win. I mean, I got the Kody shirt on here. I mean, of course, I do have a Tanner shirt too. But anyway, I love the Swansons. They're great race drivers, both of them.
So how did you get tied up with Bob Sargent? Was he desperate for help, or how did you get tied up with him?
Well, Dennis Wood, I don't think he really liked me, because he put the curse on me by saying we had to do the Hoosier 100. And that was way back 10, 12 years ago, whatever. And so 6R Racing actually stepped up, and we promoted the race. And then all my partners quit me. And I was just standing there going, wait a minute, I'm an insurance guy. What the heck am I doing here? And so I called Bob Sargent, and Bob is truly a great promoter. The racetrack, if you've been to the last several races, and I think Kody would attest to this racetrack, he prepares. That's really Bob Sargent's love, is preparing the dirt so they can run more than one groove. And the Hoosier 100 has been pretty exciting for the last several years.
A little more. It's the 25th, Thursday. What time do the gates open? What time is practice and qualifying?
Well, the gates open at noon, and I think we actually practice at 5. And I would suggest to anybody that's thinking about coming to the Hoosier 100, get yourself a pit pass, because probably our pit area at the Hoosier 100 becomes the biggest pit area of the year. Kody probably doesn't like seeing all those people. He could run over, but really and truly, come down and kick the tires. We still let the pit pass sit in the grandstand. That's my old favorite Pancho Carter rule. Pancho was, let's say Pancho had an opinion. Anybody here know that Pancho might have had an opinion? He told me, he said, if you could change one thing about the Hoosier 100, you'd let the pit pass people sit in the grandstand. And so we do that. I'm not sure Bob does that at the other races, but so far the Pancho Carter rule still kind of works.
Well, if you can't get out, you're crazy. You got to get out to the state fairground. It's a great track. And you're right, Bob, since he's been there, has really put a good surface on for these guys to run on. And you're going for number 4. You want to tie Big Al.
I mean, that'd be the idea. That you go to. I mean, I gotta say, since I've been driving, well, for anybody, the goal is to do the best job you can and to try to win. And the De Palma family owns the 63 car, and like Tom mentioned, Bob Hampshire is a big part of it, engine builder and crew chief on it. And racing for those guys, whether it's been dirt or the pavement, I feel like we've had a chance to win. And that's all you can ask for, So since I teamed up with them, we've gone 3 for 3 with the Hoosier 100, and I'd sure like to keep that streak alive.
And what's your car number?
63.
63.
I mean, if anyone remembers the way Jack Hewitt looked in 1986 and 87 when he won it, it's pretty much the twin to that car. And I don't know how many people come up and say, hey, is that the same car Jack Hewitt? And yes, it is. And I know I'm not Jack Hewitt or as good as Jack Hewitt, and that's okay. But, man, I sure have fun doing it. And
he never won 3 in a row.
He didn't?
No, he didn't.
Huh.
He never won 3 in a row. AJ Foyt won 3 in a row.
He did
but
not.
Jack Hewitt never won 3 Hoosier Hundreds in a row.
Hoosier Hundreds.
Yeah.
But
Hoosier 100.
There's the part I love about it is there's a lot of passionate race fans that are still going strong from that era, and that's something that, like I mentioned earlier, the history and the tradition, it's neat to be a part of. Neat for me to kind of continue in the Silver Crown Series that have so many passionate race fans, and I'm glad to see him out. Love to see him at the Hoosier 100. Like Tom mentioned, the open pit area, and we're approachable and accessible, and it's great to meet and talk with people and race fans beforehand. And when it gets time to practice and down to business, there's plenty of places for them to be and see us in action, and it's just a great atmosphere to be a part of.
They're going to have Bob's bringing in the Mid-America Stock Car Series for both the Hoosier 100 and the Carb Night race. And, I haven't seen those guys run, but these are full-size stock cars as opposed to the E-mods that have been running before where Kenny Schrader wins it every time, or Kenny Wallace. So I think that'll be interesting to see those stock cars out on the Hoosier 100 mile. So.
And it won't damage the track, those heavier cars?
Well, I don't know. They probably use a different compound of tire, which, could make a difference for Kody, but Cody's pretty savvy about that racetrack. If you want to count him out at about lap 75, that's when I see him stand up in the seat. You shouldn't count him out because I think he can make it 4 in a row.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of neat things, and we usually have the modifieds compliment us, as the show, but that's something that makes it fun about the fairgrounds and the dirt tracks. I mean, I said I like pavement. I'm a pavement guy, but something I like about the dirt is it's always changing, and it is at the miles too. And you kind of have to watch the racetrack, watch the grooves, and where you can build traction and speed. And at the same time, you have to take care of your tires because they're 100 miles and you only get one set. So. That's the beauty of it and what makes the Hoosier 100 fun. Something I'm looking forward to the challenge. And we talked about, Tom mentioned, Friday night we're going to be racing at Lucas Oil Raceway, what was always Raceway Park. There with the Silver Crown cars. And then I got a busy week ahead. I'll also be running at the Little 500 there in Anderson. So
I think you're the defending champion there, aren't you?
The defending champion, yeah.
Yeah, so, how about that? You win the Hoosier 100 and you go on and win Little 5. That's pretty strong.
Well, I know there'll be a number of people that are sitting out here or listening and watching who will make an appearance at the race at the fairgrounds, and hopefully they'll go over to Lucas Oil Raceway on Friday night and watch the race. I want to thank you both for being here. Kody, I know you work on the car generally, but you got away. Must have it ready to go for Thursday, so you're set.
Yeah, I text Tom on the way up that I'm sorry if I was going to be late, but I was at Gene Nolan's shop. I'm driving for him this year at the Little 500. I lost my ride I had last year and won the race and lost the deal. But
figure that out.
That's kind of how I go.
Some guy named Tony Stewart got that ride?
I think
so. Are
so.
you kidding me? I don't know that he can sit up in the seat for 200 laps there. That's going to be interesting.
I bet he will. I bet he'll have so much fun. I bet he's going to love every minute of it. And you know, no hard feelings at all. I like to tease, but man, I'm thankful that I got the chance to run with the Hoffman team last year. What a class operation, and to have won that race for them was really something special. And this is just a new opportunity for me. You know, Gene is a great car owner, and I don't think he's won it yet.
Got that V6 in there, don't you?
He does.
Yeah, well, we've seen that V6 be pretty powerful.
So I'm looking forward to the opportunity to run with him and see how we end up on Saturday night.
Well, we wish you nothing but the best, and thank you for taking the time to come here. And hopefully you can make it 4 in a row. We'll be out to watch and see if you can do it. Kody Swanson.
Hey, thanks, Don. Thanks for having us.
And the assistant promoter for Bob Sargent for the Hoosier 100, a 3-time hole-in-one guy, shot 87 today, Tom Johnson. I shot 87, but that was the first 9. Next.
Are we going to raffle off some tickets for the
It's
races?
already handled.
Oh, you've had it? Okay. Well, then you just need to let me know.
I will let you know.
We'll have them at
Yep.
the will call window.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next week, as typical, we will not be here. Everybody will be raced out by next Tuesday, including myself. But we will be here the following week. So keep an eye on autosportradio.com. Click on the show tab, and you'll see who the guests are. Want to thank everybody for being here, for coming in early. It was a great night, great time. Until next time, 2 weeks from now, Don K. saying good night. Oh, by the way, I want to mention, for those of you here on Thursday and Friday, May 25th and 26th, there'll be a tent party out in front of McGilvery's. There'll be live auctions on both nights, and Hank FM will be here. There'll be tickets for the Carb Day, given